All right. We are live. It is Friday, Hunter. It is the game of our lives. Both of us Washington graduates. Doesn't get much bigger than this, does it?
No, this is probably the biggest game UW's played in my lifetime, I think. I don't know a bigger game going back to like the national championship year. I guess you could argue the playoff game against Bama in 2016, but I didn't really think we could win that game going in. I think we can win this game. I know we're 9.5 point underdogs, but Kalen DeBoer's won as an underdog. We were 12.5 when we went down to Eugene last year. We were underdogs this year when we played them. So yeah, it's I'm nervous but excited.
Yeah, and I think we were plus 12 at Oregon last year. I think we're -3 this year at home, which pushed exactly on the 3. But yeah, line moved to 10 overnight, or like I looked at the line before I went to bed last night. It had gone to 10. It's back down to 9, so some money coming in on Washington. I think this is a line that Washington would cover 90% of the time. I think this is from that perspective, from just purely betting perspective. Obviously, I'm heavily biased, but I think these a Washington team that I get from like an outside perspective. If you don't watch them, you haven't watched them under Kalen DeBoer for the last 2 years. Yeah, they play close against every team that they play. I genuinely think we could play against a junior high team or we could play against an NFL team, and it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. That's just the style of play for whatever reason that this team has. And I do actually think that if we can keep it close, Washington with a big advantage in the fourth quarter because of all of the close games that they have played this year.
Yeah, I think it's a coaching mismatch. I think Kalen DeBoer, I mean, he's just proven. And we don't know who Dan Lanning is as a coach. We've seen him make questionable decisions in his first year into his second year. What Dan Lanning is he's a great accumulator of talent. Like, there's no doubt about it. Oregon's the more talented team. Their skill position players are NFL guys. Like, they're fast twitch. It kind of reminds me of like Tez Johnson reminds me of DeAnthony Thomas back in the day. So it's gonna, but like UW's OC Ryan Grubb, one of the best OCs in the country, he's due for a head coaching job. I think it's really just gonna come down to like how Penix can play. I know there's these rumors that he's been injured or he's got like a cracked rib or something, but UW keeps fending those off and Penix keeps saying he's okay. Penix has been off his last few games, and like when he gets moved off the spot and he's rolling out, he hasn't been as accurate. And then I saw Oregon's door listed D lineman and talked about that, trying to get Penix off the spot, saying that when they do, he's just an average quarterback. So I think it'll come a lot down to also the protection. And UW's line's been great this year, but Oregon has a lot of talent on the defensive side. It's gonna take a near perfect game for the Dogs to win, but Kalen DeBoer's proven that they can play that in the big moments.
It's simple for me. I want 80 targets for Rome Odunze tonight. If we're going to lose, I hope we lose because we've tried to throw it to Rome too many times. I don't think there's enough targets that we could possibly get. I think he's the best player on the field for either team on either side of the ball. I think he's the best Husky that I've ever seen in my lifetime. Another reason why, you lose the game, we'll go the Fiesta Bowl, probably play against Alabama, but it's likely Odunze wouldn't play in that game. So for me, that's just another extra piece of this game that could be the last time we see some of these guys. And I truly believe, I know we've had John Ross, a fantastic player, and he was a linchpin to that playoff year team. And I agree with you that this game is bigger than that just because of who the opponent is. I know maybe nationally people don't appreciate or understand the Washington-Oregon rivalry. I've said this forever that I root for Washington State pretty much anytime we don't play them. And even when we do play Washington State, it's like I don't have a deep hatred for Wazoo. I have that for Oregon. I mean, I think I was probably 5-6 years old going to a game at UW with my dad, and you have adult Oregon fans pointing at you in the face saying "fuck you" when you're a little kid. Like, that builds in the hatred. So I'm excited too, just for the fact that this rivalry gets this national stage tonight as well.
Yeah, I mean, the UW Oregon rivalry, moving to the Big Ten, it's going to get more national coverage, I'm sure. But I think that's what makes this game so big is like, this is a playoff game and UW's acknowledged that. Like, UW's not expecting whether UW's deserving or not to get in as a 12-1 conference, regular season conference champion. It's not going to happen. Like, we know the SEC bias. We know the East Coast bias. We know they'll put in a 1-loss Alabama or a 1-loss Ohio State. So this is a playoff game, biggest rival, biggest stage. It's going to be exciting, man.
Yeah, I was thinking earlier, I'm voting. Not that my opinion obviously has any impact on what's going to take place. I want the dogs on defense off of the opening kickoff, because if Oregon scores, it's like, oh, they're supposed to score. We get the ball back, we can go match it. If we get the ball first and we don't score, I'll already have decided that the game is over and we're screwed. So that's for me the coin flip. It's even a crucial piece of the puzzle tonight.
Yeah, I also just like, if we're able to kick off and play defense with how our offense is, I always trust us coming out of the half to make those second half adjustments. So yeah, I totally agree. Start out on defense, you give up a score, you still got a possession in pocket, go down and answer it. I don't know, like Dan Lanning seems like the coach that would take the ball off the kickoff, maybe.
Oh, for sure.
So odds are we'll probably be on defense.
And in all honesty, this is not even for me a biased take. I believe this is a fact. And if you look at the last two Oregon-Washington games, Washington won the game because Dan Lanning made terrible coaching decisions. The first game down there last year, Washington were big underdogs in that game. Washington turns the ball over. I think Penix threw a pick at the goal line to put Washington ahead. Oregon gets the ball. They go for it on fourth down from their own 30-yard line and slip and fall, and that's an easy field goal for Washington to win it. We saw what happened this year with the fourth down and end of half decisions that Lanning's made. So there is without a doubt a in the head edge that Washington has in this game, because if you're Dan Lanning, you've now blown arguably 2 times in these games. Every fourth down decision, every crucial one of those decisions, he's got that in the back of his head. So I do think from that perspective, again, I'm hugely biased. I want Washington to win this game more than I probably wanted any team I've rooted for to ever win a game. But I do think that is a piece of the puzzle that, especially from the spread perspective, Washington, Kalen DeBoer is in Dan Lanning's head. I don't think that is a debatable point.
Yeah, and we talk about it in basketball a lot, but can you put game pressure on the other team? Oregon's the better team in the first quarter. I'm sure of that probably, but can you put the coaching staff in those decisions? You put them in a 4th and 2, and then they should probably run the ball. But then if they run the ball and get stopped, the whole fan base is going to be talking about how they should throw the ball. If they throw the ball, and it's incomplete, they're going to be talking about how it was 4th and 2 in Husky Stadium and they threw the ball. So just put that game pressure on the coaching staff. And that's where I trust UW. Like we saw last week with going with the read option end around on 4th and 1 with the season on the line. UW calls plays and plays to win the game. Oregon might be playing not to lose if they get in those pressure situations.
Yeah, and I think just also for a quick kind of breakdown, I guess, because we do know these teams rather well, for anybody who's, maybe watching college football not that often or doesn't see a lot of Washington Oregon games. For me, some of the crucial spots on the field that will decide this game is obviously Washington struggles to tackle in space. I think the defense has actually improved a lot. I think there's this assumption that the Washington defense is terrible, and I think it wasn't great at the beginning of the year. I think it has improved a lot, but a big issue that Washington has had for 2 years now is tackling guys in space. And what does Oregon want to do? They want to get guys in space. Bucky Irving is almost untackleable. So if Washington is able to make some tackles in space, I think that's obviously gives them. If you see Washington start early in the game making tackles in space, that's a positive sign. And then the Oregon secondary, to me, is the weakest point on their team. They did nothing really to slow down the Washington passing attack. Last game, I think Washington, if anything, shot themselves in the foot. And I also think that that Oregon-Washington game this year, Washington wins by 3. Everybody says, oh, Oregon should have won, could have won that game. They definitely could have. I mean, they had the ball 4th down that they convert that. The game is over. But Washington was also up 10 in that game, I think, and had the ball and just started running some bad play calls, but Washington had no trouble against the Oregon defense for the most part last time out. And due to that, I think there's this assumption that the Oregon defense is amazing or whatever. I think Rome Odunze, I think Jalen Polk, I think McMillan, Westover, if Penix is 80% healthy, I don't really think, I think the edge there is clearly with the Washington offense. And so it's not as black and white for me that the Washington defense sucks, for example, and that the Oregon defense is fantastic.
Yeah, and I think basketball is so much more a sport of should have won the game. When it comes down to football, a good football game comes down to a few key crucial plays, because a 4th down stop is a turnover. And it doesn't feel like an interception or a fumble, but if you get stopped at the 45 and give up a short field, that's what the game comes down to, because if you extend your drive with how potent both these offenses are, a lot of times it ends in 7 points. So saying Oregon should have won the game, it's yeah, they outgained UW, but in the biggest moments, UW stepped up, and that's what football is all about. At the end of the day, if you have 4 downs to get 10 yards, the offense should get it every time. So if your defense can step up in those big moments, like that's to go win a ball game. So I don't buy it. Like, I don't think Oregon should have won the game. Were they the better team up and down the field? Sure. But should they have won the game? No.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. There's no question that Oregon will move the ball tonight. It's going to be 2nd and 2 on like every possession. Washington's first down defense, it's always 2nd and 2. Every team we played this year, it's 2nd and 2 to 2nd. But that has been where the Washington defense has stepped up. They've actually been, in my opinion, I don't know what the exact numbers are, rather effective in those short yardage crucial plays. And again, that was what decided the game last time. Those plays will be in Dan Lanning's head this time. If you're a Washington fan or Washington better tonight, I think that is the angle that honestly you can feel the best about. But yeah, if I was percentage wise, is Oregon more likely to win tonight? 100%. Is Washington going to be much more competitive, and is this game going to be much closer than I think the assumption is? I also believe that I'll be surprised if it's not a close game either way. I don't think Washington runs away. I don't think Oregon runs away. I think there's going to be probably, like we're just saying, 3 to 5 of those decisive plays that the last 2 Oregon-Washington games have gone Washington's way. And we'll see which way those go tonight.
Yeah, it's gonna come down to the wire, like for sure.
So moving to the basketball side of things, because we do have an enticing kind of thing to have on in the background or at halftime of the game tonight. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. UConn going to Kansas tonight to play at Allen Fieldhouse against the Jayhawks, one of the premier non-conference games of the season from a actually going and playing on the road environment. Obviously, we've had some nice neutral court battles up to this point, but I think these on-campus games this week have really reminded me, at least, especially from a betting perspective, that on-campus college basketball, that's an entirely different beast than some of these neutral site tournaments that we've seen over the last week.
Yeah, tough to go on the road. We saw that in the SEC ACC battle, especially early on in the season for these marquee matchups. Like, I think Arkansas is a great example. If that game's on a neutral court, I'm pretty confident that Duke goes and wins it. But you see after the game, like Jon Scheyer's talking about how the sophomores need to step up, but then he also says, like, not a lot of things can prepare you for that experience of going into just an arena like that with that energy. And like, yeah, the field house is going to be rocking tonight for the Jayhawks.
And I texted you this, speaking of the sophomores and the Arkansas Duke game. I don't think what is Tyrese Proctor? He has been terrible in both of the big games that Duke has had this year against Arizona and against Arkansas. He was 2 for 6 from 2, 1 of 6 from 3. He's an okay passer. He has some good assist to turnover numbers. But for Duke to, I guess let's quickly have like what is Duke right now? Because they lose that game. They lost a home game to Arizona. They fall into number 14 in KenPom. I'll be moving them down in my rankings. Their best win right now is Michigan State, and we know that Michigan State hasn't been what we thought they'd be to this point. The rest of their wins are all 300 level KenPom victories. They're playing Georgia Tech this weekend, and then some other 100 level opponents before they play Baylor here. Filipowski was not good at all against the size and athleticism of Arkansas. Proctor hasn't been great. Roach is solid, but he got into foul trouble in that game. What do you think the realistic expectations at this point should be for a Duke team that coming into the year, I think a lot of people thought was one of the best in the country?
Yeah, we talked about it at the start of the year. Like, Duke was the number 2 team in the country, but they didn't earn that. They were given that with their freshman class coming in, the sophomores coming back. Everyone was talking about Filipowski being the national player of the year. But they haven't gone out and they haven't shown it. And Jon Scheyer's been pretty up about that. He's the team needs to get better. The team needs to get better in big moments. But yeah, they lost the game to Arizona at home. They go on to Arkansas. They lose that game. Those are their 2 biggest games of the year to this point. So I don't think they're a top 10 team right now. Do they have top 10 potential? Is Tyrese Proctor potentially a lottery pick according to the experts? Like, sure. But are they putting it together? No, they're not right now. I think they still need to find out who they want to play together. Like, they have a lot of pieces and they're still trying to put that puzzle together. So, I mean, Duke could gel and Duke's going to be good. Duke's going to be really good. They're going to be in the tournament. They're going to be a problem, but they have a lot to figure out between now and then.
Yeah, and I think to your point about figuring out who's going to play, like, they were going to Filipowski as the biggest, like, playing him as the 5 basically a lot in that second half. And he just, to me, he's not athletic enough on the interior against these really athletic. He looked like he was never going to make a layup again in his life against this interior Arkansas defense. And for me, that's just concerning at the moment, just because, yeah, it seems like Shire can't figure out what is the best lineup here. I'm not going to overreact necessarily, but for me right now, North Carolina is the best team in the ACC. I think they pick up that victory over Tennessee. Obviously, they scored like 60 something in the first half. They kind of had to hold on there a little bit in the second half as Tennessee got their win. Dalton Connect, fantastic. Unfortunately, he's hurt his ankle. I haven't seen what the maybe longer term impacts of that were going to be. He was on pace for over 40 points in that game. But North Carolina, with the roster construction that they have of RJ Davis now being able to play off the ball and kind of just fire threes at will, Baycott's fantastic. Harrison Ingram, Elliot Cadeau at point guard, the kind of pass first mentality he has matches this team excellently. And then you got Cormac Ryan as well. For me, due to the Duke results, as well as what I've seen from North Carolina, I'm moving them right now, for me, to my favorite in the ACC. What are your thoughts on the top of the ACC right now?
Yeah, North Carolina at this point is the best team in the ACC. They're just moving the ball better this year, and they're willing to share it. Whatever happened with RJ Davis and Kevin Love, a lot of rumors about stuff like interpersonal. They were just playing a lot of my turn, your turn ball last year, but like bringing in Elliot Cadeau, bringing in Cormac Ryan, bringing in Harrison Ingram, they're all willing to make that extra pass, and it's really showing. This North Carolina offense is getting up and down the court. They're getting open shots. They're playing inside out through Baycott. I totally agree with you that to this point, they're the best team in the ACC. Do I think down the stretch Duke could surpass them? I definitely do, but to this point, North Carolina deserves to be the number one team in the ACC for sure.
Yeah, and then we're just kind of looking at the rest of that ACC SEC challenge. I kind of bet this to some degree too. I expected this to be a big advantage for the SEC. It ends up being a tie, 7-7. Were the results there, but I think some of the marquee teams in the SEC, teams that we've been high on, maybe didn't perform the way that we thought they would.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech beats Mississippi State. Your Texas A&M team gets Tony Bennett. They score 47 points.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about my concern of them on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, you're not going to play a defense like Virginia every day of the week, but Virginia wins that one 59-47. Wake Forest takes down Florida. Florida was up big, I think, in the first half of that one. And then
I think the most shocking was Clemson going into Alabama.
And then Clemson goes into Alabama. Now you look at the rest of the teams in the ACC here. And so it's North Carolina, Duke, Virginia, Clemson. A lot closer, I think, between those four teams maybe than we would have thought at the beginning of the year, with Duke as the clear kind of seemingly number one team in the ACC, and then North Carolina, we didn't really know what to expect from them, and then Virginia, Clemson. I think that the competitiveness or the depth of the ACC might be a little bit better than maybe we were thinking before the season.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were kind of writing off the ACC this year. They were saying the bottom of the barrel still is weak, but that's always the case in the ACC. Yeah, we'll have to see. Like, it's definitely come down to the big three, like North Carolina, Duke, and Virginia carrying the torch. Clemson looks to have a good team this year. They could definitely make the tournament, but it's going to come down to one of those big teams. Also, though, credit to Wake Forest. Like, Steve Forbes has a good team there, and that's a good win over Florida. Florida's looked good to this point, so that was a big win for Wake Forest in the ACC. I definitely would have had Florida in that game going in.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, Florida was at some point, I can't tell what the exact percentage here was, but it looks like Florida was at like a 90% to win that game in the second half and fell apart late. And Wake Forest picks up the victory there. Who won between where's this game? Oh, Pittsburgh and Missouri. Missouri won that game against Pittsburgh. I don't know. I watched Pittsburgh against in the tournament up here last week in the preseason NIT. They're an interesting team, but you can't lose a home game to Missouri if you're Pittsburgh, and they lost to Florida as well up there. So that's why I was kind of trying to connect the dots on those ACC, SEC opponents. But yeah, overall, I think the ACC got the results that they were looking for out of this tournament, just based on, again, where the thoughts were these conferences going into the season. KenPom right now has moved the SEC actually down to fourth. Just if you take the aggregate KenPom rankings, KenPom has the conference standings as Big 12, Big East, Big 10, SEC, Pac-12, and then the ACC. So the ACC is still down at the bottom of the power conferences. But I think they're going to have some opportunities to pick up some more marquee wins over the next few weeks. And that leads us into the Big East Big 12 battle, I believe is what it's called. You couldn't draw up a better competition in college basketball in my book than lining up these top two conferences in the country. It is now the 5th year of the Big East Big 12 Challenge. Last night, Butler, who continues to impress, this Butler team under Thad Matta, they played well down in the Orlando tournament, and now Butler's they're on a 3-game winning streak with wins over Penn State, Boise State, and now Texas Tech. I think Butler and Thad Matta might be onto something here in his, I think it's second year at Butler.
Yeah, Butler was down last year, first year for Thad Matta, had to get the program up and running. Butler's going to compete for a spot in the NCAA tournament this year. They're definitely not the cream of the crop in the Big East. They're definitely a tier below. But I think they've moved up from like the not making the tournament group. And they're definitely, I mean, the bottom of the Big East, like DePaul's a joke. But there's a bunch of like Georgetown's a joke. But I think Butler you would have had in the bottom half of the conference going in. And I think they're going to be competing to be a top 6 team this year.
Yeah, no, I think they're well on their way to being a tournament team when you consider now that they've got wins over, I guess, Penn State and Boise State aren't amazing. This Texas Tech win's definitely the best one of the season so far. But if you're Butler, you know you're going to have a myriad of good chances for big wins in conference. And if they can pick up even 1 or 2 of those against the UConns or Marquettes and Villanovas of the world. And speaking of Villanova, we talked about them in the lead-in to their game against St. Joe's a couple days ago. We said this Villanova team proved themselves down in Atlantis, but we've still got some concerns about them because of that loss to Penn. And it's like, okay, what is this team? They come back, it really wasn't even close against St. Joe's. They were down at halftime. They never really got close in the second half. They've now got wins over number 59, number 52, number 11, and number 38 in KenPom, but they've also now got losses to 84 and 190. What is this just going to be a team all year where we're not quite sure what they are?
I think what this is going to be is a team that gets underseeded come March Madness because Villanova's ceiling is the Final Four. Like they have the talent to get there, but they have these bad losses. Like they already lose to Penn, they already lose to St. Joe's. Like those are going to knock them down come seed line time, and I think they end up being one of those like 7 to 9 teams that then, in the second round is matched up against a 1 or 2, and all of a sudden, like half the brackets on Villanova. I definitely think they're going to be underseeded because this team's talented. Like this team is super, super talented. The ceiling is so high, but it like perplexing loss. Like to your point, not just the loss, like getting knocked off at the buzzer, but St. Joe's handled them the whole game.
Yeah, and I think it's also true about this Villanova team right now. They're shooting the 3rd most threes in the country, and they're going to live and die by the 3. They shot 10 of 37 from 3 in this game. That's 27%. Meanwhile, St. Joe's gets white hot, shoots 14 of 27, 52%. And it's going to be tough no matter. And the other piece of that is Villanova's surrendering the 352nd most threes in the country this year. So they have an offense that lives and dies by the 3, and they've got a defense that lives and dies by the 3. That's a recipe for getting upset. That's also a recipe for absolutely blasting some teams when you're shooting it well and they're struggling. So we'll see how that develops. I think if you're Kyle Neptune, I don't know if that's the exact recipe that I would want as just a team in general is living and dying by the 3 and then surrendering that many threes. We'll see, I think, for him as a coach, if he can adapt that coming into conference play, because there's a lot of Big East teams who can really shoot it. And I don't know if you want to be so prone to the rise and fall of the 3 ball.
Yeah, and that's just dangerous come March Madness. Like if you're trying to make a run, you need to win 6 games in a row. Like you're going to run into some teams that can knock the ball down. The only team I've ever seen not was that Oregon State miracle run to the Elite 8. Like every team shot under 25% from 3 or something crazy. But yeah, when you get into March Madness, you need to defend the 3-point line.
And so we'll talk about the spreads of tonight's game and make some picks here in a second. But the other game last night was Creighton, who they bounced back with a win over Oklahoma State. But Oklahoma State, to me, we saw them with our own eyes. They may be one of the worst college basketball teams that I've ever watched in person that comes from a Power 5 conference. The line last night, I think, was like 8. I was busy, so I didn't have time to do any picks. But keep your eyes peeled on Oklahoma State this year because there's going to be some betting opportunities against those guys.
Would you say our McNeese State Cowboys are better than the Oklahoma State Cowboys?
Oh, 100%. I don't even like, we haven't talked to McNeese recently, and we should. And actually, statistically, that's a fact now. Oklahoma State 104th in KenPom. They've lost to Abilene Christian, St. Bonaventure, Notre Dame, and Creighton. Our McNeese State Cowboys are flourishing down there. They're number 88 now in KenPom. Big win against UAB on the road. 21-point victory against UAB. It looks like tomorrow we've got Tennessee Martin home game. We need to take care of business in that one.
Yeah, and then I believe ahead of LSU and KenPom as well. So just reminding everyone down in Baton Rouge, they might have made a mistake.
They definitely did. We're talking about a McNeese team who's 5th in the country in three-point percentage. They don't shoot a lot of them. They're 341st in three-point attempts. Will doesn't want them out there firing threes, but when they shoot them, they're going in. One thing that our Cowboys need to improve I don't think it's going to matter in the conference season. They should, if they lose a game in the conference, it'd be an upset. They'd have a good chance to go undefeated. We need to improve at the free throw line. 352nd in the country right now in free throws. Maybe shoot a text down to your guys down there, and let's do just a couple extra reps at the free throw line. And then let's get it. Let's improve that during conference play, because come March, if we're going to be pulling upsets, we can't be shooting 59% from the line.
Yeah, we're going to need to improve from the stripe. And it's crazy because like the 3-pointers are falling. So there's good shooters on the team. It's just the free throws aren't right now.
Yeah, a few more reps. And to be fair, they haven't actually shot a lot of free throws. So this could be a small sample size thing. We get to the line a little bit more. It's Tennessee Martin, Southern Miss, Louisiana, the next 3. Oh, actually, there's a game after this against the Mississippi University for Women.
Yes, that is been on the schedule. I don't know what is going on with the Mississippi University for Women, but it's on the schedule. Hey, you can only play who's on your schedule.
You can only play who's on your schedule.
Winning.
So if we can take care of those, and then a big game at Michigan, I'm hoping for a double-digit spread there that we will absolutely be hammering the Cowboys. So had to do it. We got off track there, but we needed a quick check-in on the Cowboys because they have been playing well under the radar. Keep tabs down on them. But rest of the Big East Big 12 Challenge, let's just go through game by game. Let's ignore the spread for this, and let's pick a winner. The Big East is 2-0 so far in this competition. Tonight at 6:30, we have Houston at Xavier.
Houston.
Easy. Give me Houston as well. Here's one. This is a little bit more of a challenge. St. John's at West Virginia. St. John's has been pretty average this year. West Virginia. After you pick this one, I'll tell you. I'm not going to look first. I'm going to pick West Virginia, and then I'm going to look at the spread. But who do you got in St. John's, West Virginia?
They did a good job matching up two teams that are like not good, but also if they're playing at home, like I got to go West Virginia, the home team. Whoever was at home in this game, I'd take. So West Virginia.
Yeah, it's West Virginia +6. I'm not gonna. I haven't done enough research to submit an official selection here, but I was expecting that to be lower. That's all I'll say.
I know that West Virginia has struggled this year. They're also like waiting on a couple players. Raekwon Battle, ex-UW Husky, he's still waiting on a waiver, so they don't have their whole team together. They obviously lost Huggy Bear to some off the court issues, so they're not great this year. But I'll still take them. I'll take them as the underdog.
Yeah, and I mean they lost to Virginia by 2 the other day, and Virginia just beat Texas A&M. So I think that's a solid enough team. But again, not an official selection, but keep your eyes on that one. I think the spread might be a little high there. DePaul is hosting Iowa State. Give me Iowa State.
Cyclones all the way.
We'll save UConn, Kansas, because we're going to give that one its own investigation here soon enough. TCU, undefeated, I believe, TCU.
I don't think they've played a top 300 team, though.
No, it's been a joke. They've their biggest win so far is against number 268, the Nebraska Omaha. I don't even know what the mascot is there, Nebraska Omaha. I think their logo is that like kind of rounded O, which it looks like it's moving. That's
a little diagonal.
Yeah. So TCU has won every game they've played. They have played no one at all. They get Georgetown tonight or on Saturday. That's at Georgetown. And Georgetown this year, we know they've suffered one bad loss at least to Holy Cross. Wow, they went to overtime against American. I mean, things are not going well for Ed Cooley here either. Give me TCU in this one.
Yeah, TCU. Like I like the backcourt a lot. Jameer Nelson Jr. I like the front court, Emmanuel Miller. TCU is really talented. Like, don't be surprised if they're a top 3, top 4 team in the Big 12 this year.
What do you think Georgetown is in KenPom right now?
Starts with a 2.
Almost 188. If they'll probably lose
Ugh.
this one and fall. I mean, we don't need to talk about Georgetown, but Ed Cooley's got a lot of work to do down there. I was talking to last night. One of my friends went to Georgetown, and they know it's a long road to hoe down there to get things back on track. But
it's going to be a big rebuild. I mean, if he can do it, it's going to be really impressive because Patrick Ewing drove that program into the ground.
Villanova. This is now actually, yeah, this is next. Wow, this competition just goes forever. Next Tuesday, Villanova, Kansas State at Kansas State. I think I'm going to take Villanova in this team. Whatever you think is going to happen with this team, the opposite's going to happen. I could see this being the spread. Is like Kansas State -2 or something like that, and Villanova wins by like 30 points.
Yeah, I'll get on Villanova there as well. Like, I just trust their ceiling.
Here's a good one. In Oklahoma, at Oklahoma, Providence, who we know they beat Wisconsin. I haven't really been following them since then. They lost to Kansas State in overtime. They've beaten Georgia. So far, so good for Kim English at Providence. They're number 41 in KenPom right now. They're going to Oklahoma, who is undefeated and number 25 in KenPom.
It feels like a blind under. But if I had to pick a team, Oklahoma. Like, both those teams defend.
Yep, I'll take Oklahoma too. Seton Hall against Baylor. Baylor by 70 points is my selection in that one. We're high on the Baylor Bears. And,
Baylor's going to roll.
Things have not really gone well so far for our boy Shaheen Holloway out there at Seton Hall. They're beating the teams they're supposed to, but I mean, what is his best win so far at Seton Hall? Oh, they did beat UConn last year at home, so that's a great win. But 17-16 last year, 5-2 this year, but without any big wins. I don't think that they will be much of a threat for Baylor.
Yeah, I might need to catch a game. That's my new home team over here in Jersey.
That's true.
So.
Head on. You missed when they played St. Peter's. That's the true new
crosstown rivalry.
And then in Milwaukee, Texas Marquette, a Shaka Smart Super Bowl next Wednesday. Marquette will win, but Texas will be a sneaky upset in that one, I would say.
Give me Marquette. Like, everything we've seen from Marquette, I think their guards can match Max Abrams. Texas is athletic down low, but Osa Ighodaro is one of the most athletic bigs in the country. Give me Marquette.
All right, I'll agree with you. I think we picked the same teams in every game, so we'll go back and tally up who we selected, and then we'll see how we do in the next 10 games. But let's get into it. The game of the night, UConn, our current – you agree, right? They're our current number one team.
They're our current, not resume, but power ranking.
Yeah, they're our power ranking number one against a Kansas team who was tied, I think, with Eastern Illinois. They were 30-point favorites, and I think the game was tied with about 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, I think at the under 4, they were up like 2. I think they're up 4, but Eastern was going to the line. Like, it was a really close game.
Have you looked at the spread yet? Do you know what it is?
It's -4, right?
It is. I have not looked. It is right now. Currently, you can get UConn at +3, Kansas -2.5. The over/under is 148.5 to 150. We're just gonna talk through this one in real time. I haven't made a selection ahead of time. We're gonna make it in real time here. I think one thing, and we talked about this last time. We talked a little bit earlier. It's been, I don't know what the exact numbers are, and I think in the ACC, SEC, or just in general, home favorites or home under, like the home team is covering the spread this week in these first on-campus games. I don't know the exact numbers, but that's a trend that I think we're both seeing.
Yeah, regardless of the rankings, like the home team is taking care of business. I think it makes sense. Like, early on in the year, it's so difficult to go on the road that, like a lot of big teams don't do it. They either play home games or they play MTEs. Like, a lot of teams won't go on the road for a true road game. So it's awesome to see these conference battles. Like, getting UConn, Kansas in the preseason is just like chef's kiss.
Yeah, I mean, this is. It's annoying that the Washington-Oregon game's on Friday night anyway, first of all, because that is biased against Washington because we just had to play on Saturday and Oregon played on Friday, but we rest our case. I want to be able to commit myself to watching this game, and I absolutely will not be able to, but we just kind of look at this game statistically. Both teams off to great starts to the year. UConn hasn't really, they played Texas That's their best win so far this season. They're number 29 in KenPom. That was a game that UConn was up comfortably for the most part. It kind of got close at the end. We know what Kansas has done so far. They beat Kentucky. That looks like a better and better win. They came back to win that one. They lose to Marquette. Never really got going in that game. Kind of fell behind and couldn't rally. And then they beat Tennessee. But Tennessee, we talked about them before the North Carolina game. Then they battled back in that game nicely against North Carolina, but they're getting waxed in the first half. So this Kansas team is definitely more battle tested this season than this UConn team is. And we just look at the statistics here. UConn rebounding the ball really well. They're 6th in the country in rebounding. UConn shooting the 86th most threes. They're firing a lot of threes this year. They're shooting 30%, which is actually not very good from three. That's 237th in the country. UConn defending the three-point line reasonably well. Cam Spencer, certainly the best three-point shooter for UConn, and a concern I would have for them is he is the only guy on the team shooting above 33%. So maybe a lack of three-point weapons for UConn. And then on the Kansas side of things, they've been turning the ball over way too much. We've talked about DeJuan Harris and just the team in general. They've kind of just played to the level of competition that they've been up against this year. They don't rebound at all. They're 267th in offensive rebounding, which is kind of surprising with Dickinson in there. But besides him, there really isn't anyone to rebound. UConn 8th on the defensive glass. 3-point shooting wise, the Kansas not shooting a lot of threes right now. They're 300th in the country in 3-point attempts. UConn does not allow a lot of threes, so I think this becomes a battle on the interior there. And that's where it's really interesting because Connecticut's 2nd in 2-point percentage this year. Kansas's defense is 10th in 2-point defense. Kansas's offense 14th in 2-point offense. And Connecticut's defense 9th in 2-point offense. So I think this becomes a game that is just a battle on the interior. And when you look at that, you look at Clingan versus Dickinson, both 7'2", both playing great this year. Who do you think has the edge on the interior in this game?
I like Kansas here. And one thing I've been seeing a lot in these big games early is the home whistle has been very strong. Like you looked at that Miami-Kentucky game and Norchad Omier, it was like the key to the game is like keep him out of foul trouble. And he picked up 2 cheap ones like 4 minutes into the game. When you get these games with these big environments, like I trust Hunter Dickinson and all his antics and stuff to like put a foul or 2 on Clingan early. I mean, he's the villain. Like he should go into WWE after his basketball career. I like Kansas in this game, and I don't think if UConn loses this game, it should really we'll probably move Purdue to 1 if that happens, but I don't think it says a lot. Like I think the home team would win this game. If it was in stores, I'd take Connecticut. With it being in Kansas, I'd take Kansas.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too. I truly believe that UConn is the better basketball team. At this point, like on a neutral floor, I'm taking UConn in this game for sure. I have been on the wrong side this week of too many what I thought was the better team going on the road and then them playing like they've never played basketball before. And I don't think that's necessarily going to happen with UConn. I think Dan Hurley is going to have them prepared for this game, but going to Allen Fieldhouse, one of the most difficult tests in college basketball, one of the most difficult tests in sports, honestly. Like, there's a reason that Kansas has won the Big 12 infinity years in a row. I mean, they slipped up one year, I think, recently, but it's pretty much Kansas every year. It's because it's really, really, really hard to beat them at Allen Fieldhouse. I think we've talked about this too. I think the starting lineup for Kansas is as good as any team in the country. Like, their first 5 is excellent. They've struggled because they haven't truly struggled. They haven't lived up to their number 1 preseason expectations yet because those other pieces, the Furfies, the Timberlakes, haven't been what they were supposed to be. But that is the type of thing that changes when you play at home and you play at Allen Fieldhouse in front of a hugely active crowd.
Yeah, they really targeted shooting when they hit the transfer portal, and those shots haven't been falling for those guys early. We talked about the Maui rims, though, like a very tough place to get it going. But how many times have we seen a guy that's shooting 29, 30% come back home and start knocking down 45% of his threes?
Yeah, and so I think I think this spread is totally fair. I think this is the right numbers. I think UConn +3, Kansas -2.5. You put that a neutral floor. That's a slight edge for UConn, and I think that's how I would size this game up. But I've just been burned too many times this week by taking the road team. maybe this is the day that it flips. But yeah, give me Kansas in the -2.5. Even if they win, let's say they win by 5, I don't know if that will cause me to change my power rankings. It may drop UConn out of number 1 because that's just the reality of the world. But this is ultimately not a must win for Kansas. Obviously, it's not a must win in any actual impact long term. But this is UConn's playing with house money here. If UConn goes on the road and wins at Kansas, they are the undoubted number 1 team in the country. Versus if you're Kansas, you need to make a statement here. You need to defend your home court. And for that reason, give me the Jayhawks -2.5.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll see a higher level like a better marquee matchup all year than this game. Like this is sweet that the Big East and Big 12 are doing this, and the fact that they paired up these two is absolutely awesome.
Agreed. 100% there. Yeah. So Kansas -2.5 is our selection in that one. We quickly touch. We already talked about who we think will win these games. We'll just take a look at the spreads in these Houston at Xavier game. The spread in this one is Houston. Wow, Houston by 9.5 on the road here. Xavier +10. The over/under 138.5 to 140. Xavier coming off of a loss at home to Oakland. They've also lost to Purdue and our Washington Huskies. Houston comes in here at 7-0. That's another one of these scary numbers. Obviously, Houston, the much better team here, but 9.5 on the road. I believe this would be the first road test of the year for Houston. Yeah, this is their first road game. Seems like a pretty big number. KenPom has it at 6. Any thoughts on this one?
I'm not going to bet Xavier. Like I love Sean Miller. I think he's a great coach. I think he can turn around any team. I think he gets the most out of his players, but like they haven't looked good early and Houston's really good. I'm not going to lay the points with Houston. I think there's better places to put your money tonight. Yeah, I could see Xavier playing them really close. I could also see them getting run off the floor because Houston's just that good.
7 games into the year, how many unders do you think is his Houston hit?
Well, I know they're holding everyone to like under 55, so they're probably like 6-1.
Yeah, 6 unders so far this year for Houston. Xavier has 4 unders. And those unders, the average under for Houston, like this, it's been 132.5, and they've still gone under 6 times. You look on the offensive side of or you look at the matchup here, and Xavier does not shoot the 3 well. Houston defends the 3 well. The one thing Xavier does do is they assist a lot of their baskets. Sean Miller gets the ball moved around. They're 12th in the country in assists. And if you are going to score against Houston, you've got to move the ball. They're 360th, and your basket's coming off of assists. So like you will not score on playing isolation basketball against Houston. It's just not going to happen. I don't think I have a bet here because the numbers are probably fair. I'd probably lean under if I had to place a wager on this game. But I could see, because of the style of play that Xavier does play, where, like I said, they move the ball around. That's how they want to score. I think you can break down this Houston defense playing that way, but Houston's the number 1 defense in the country for a reason. Houston will win this game, but I think Sean Miller might have something up his sleeve here.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of points to give Sean Miller at home.
The Boilermakers Big Ten play is also starting tonight, apparently. We've got the Boilermakers heading to Northwestern. Northwestern is they have 1 loss to Mississippi State, but they've looked solid enough this year. Purdue obviously undefeated. Purdue versus Northwestern. We've got a line of, let's see if I can spell Purdue. Yes, I can. Interesting. Purdue only -7 on the road here against Northwestern. Northwestern +7.5, over under in the 136.5 to 137.5 range. That to me smells like a reasonable amount of confidence in Northwestern, I guess, from the odds makers here with the clear number 1 team of the country coming in.
Yeah, that's a lot of confidence. I thought that might be closer to like the Houston line, 9.5, 10. Give me Purdue though. Like, give me Purdue. I think they've earned it. I think they've earned the right to burn me because they have looked the part.
Yeah, I'm going to join you there. Purdue, 3rd in the country right now in 3-point percentage. Northwestern's 3-point defense, 327th in the country so far this year. They're allowing the 317th most threes as well tonight. So Purdue's going to have the ability to be firing away from 3. There's obviously no one on the Northwestern roster who can match up with Zach Edey. We don't even have to explain the advantage on that side. And then just defensively as well, Purdue defending the three really well. They're 6th in the country right now in 3-point defense. They're obviously aided by the Maui rims down there. It's built into those stats as well. But Northwestern 209th in 3-point shooting. Northwestern not great on the defensive glass. They're 213th. That's a problem when you've got Zach Edey in there. There's the only thing Northwestern does is turn teams over. They're 12th in the country in turnover percentage, but yeah, I think, I mean, it feels a little bit trappy, but I'm gonna ride with Purdue here. It goes against what we were just saying about being afraid of betting heavy favorites on the road in their first true road game. That's the only thing that would concern me here. But until proven otherwise, if you give me a single-digit spread for Purdue against almost anyone in the country, I think I have to bet it.
That said, Northwestern isn't exactly like Allen Fieldhouse. Like, it's not the best home court advantage in the country. It's probably not top 100 best home court advantages in the country. So, yeah, I think you got to trust the Boilermakers.
Yeah, I'll take the Boilermakers there. And then, I mean, the rest of these games, Maryland, Indiana, I don't care about that. St. Mary's, Boise State. Yeah, I think for me, 2 bets for the night. Not that I'll be really paying attention to either of them too closely. My heart and soul will be fully committed to the Huskies tonight. 2 official picks, Kansas -2.5, Purdue -7. And I think, Hunter, you're joining me on both of those, right?
Yep, I love them.
All right. Well, we will be back. I mean, if the Huskies win, there might be an emergency podcast to celebrate soon enough. But most likely we'll be back next week to talk through some of these results in the Big East Big 12 Challenge. And then next week, Tuesday, we'll once again be boots on the ground for the Jimmy V Classic. Some exciting matchups there with UConn and North Carolina. I'm super excited for that one. And FAU against an Illinois team whose lone loss to this point is to Marquette. So Jimmy V Classic should be great next week. Hunter, I'm looking forward to obviously the Dogs game, but also looking forward to watching some basketball with you next week.
Yeah, we'll have to go live before that one again. Get our bets in.
Yes, we will. All right, folks. Go Dogs, go Kansas, go Purdue. We will talk to you all later.